it's Brad, Laurie, or BlockchainBrad, and today we're speaking about all things Velo Labs, or Velo for short. To do that, we have Michael Cowans here in the hot seat to explain all things that is Velo, and essentially it stands for, as the slogan, the next generation of financial protocols for business. Now, Michael, thank you very much for being here to give us your time to explain exactly what Velo is all about.
Hey, Brad, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here today. Very much looking forward to this session and answering your questions and getting as much out about Velo and Velo Labs as I possibly can today. So yeah, really looking forward to this and ready to get going.
Absolutely, mate. Now, in the name of transparency, I'd also like to thank Velo Labs for sponsoring this very important information. And as you all know, I'm all about objectivity and all about education. So this is what we're going to be doing, diving into exactly what they stand for. Now, there's a lot of buzzwords out there in blockchain, we know that, but you are very clearly in that business sector, all about being a financial protocol. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, though, to start off with, though, so that we know that you have that background and that skill set to really lead this forward?
Sure. Not a problem. Look, I've been in technology for nearly 25 years now, so quite a while. I started my career in very hands-on with technology, working in companies like IBM, HP Autonomy, Fiserv, and as well, companies like Ripple Labs. So I was Ripple's first hire in the Asia area, so the first employee in Singapore. And I've really, for Ripple, helped build out the network and financial institutions that they have in this region today. So really, my last 3 to 4 years has all been focused on blockchain, cryptocurrency, and the next generation of payments. So while, in the grand scheme of things, 3 to 4 years doesn't seem like a lot when you talk about different types of industry, but I think as we all know, when it comes to blockchain and cryptocurrency, digital assets, this is an ecosystem that moves at the speed of light. So 3 to 4 years in blockchain and crypto, being really immersed in that, seeing the market transform in a lot of different ways. I don't think there's going to be too many other folks out there that have been as much in the center of this as I have.
I would tend to agree also, Michael. And in the context of things like DeFi that we see emerging now, clearly things are moving at that breakneck speed. Now, I want to go back for those who perhaps haven't even heard of Velo Labs before and just touch on some of the terms. For example, as I said before, it's all about finance, but more clearly, it includes things like digital credit issuance and borderless asset transfers for business. Now, do you want to just touch on that in the context of international remittance? Because that is a really important part of the whole suite of tools, the technology, and the overall point of what you're doing, so that people can understand that very important introduction.
Sure. So for folks that are a little bit, and I think it's a fair point. Velo Labs is relatively new on the scene, so it's not surprising to me, that there will be folks that have not really heard of Velo Labs as of yet. So just to sort of cross that bridge and give a little bit of an introduction to Velo Labs. Velo Labs is a blockchain organization that is focused on building a guaranteed decentralized settlement network that allows partners to safely and securely transfer value between each other in a timely and transparent way. Now, if you're familiar with the international remittance market, the barrier to entry is not, I wouldn't call it low, right? It's an exceedingly competitive market, but still remains very fragmented today. And what we're all about is enabling our trusted partners to transact without relying on intermediaries. So we really want to remove the middleman from this flow, from the payment flows. We think that will in turn remove a lot of the friction and lower the barrier to entry for a lot of financial institutions and the customers they serve. So with that being said, our initial focus is really to serve business partners in the remittance and money transfer markets of Asia Pacific. While there are problems with remittance worldwide, we believe that the problem is exacerbated to a large extent and egregious in Asia Pacific countries. Not only does a simple transaction involving two people require the involvement of a number of middlemen, and if you're familiar with payments, it's not uncommon at all to see 3 to 5 intermediaries involved in any one transaction. So there are huge swaths of the population here in Asia Pacific that are completely severed from the traditional banking system, which just exacerbates that problem even more. And when I say that, I'm talking about the unbanked and the underbanked in this part of the world. So we really want to come to the table with solutions and with technology that helps that population of people as really the first move off the rank, if you will. Sorry, so go ahead.
I see. And what's interesting also, we've heard a lot of the narrative of remittance in the past, but you mentioned something very important, that was the Southeast Asia region of the world. And obviously you being, situated in Asia as we speak, that's got to be a boon for you as you emerge. So what's your perspective on that, given that we have seen a long history of remittance, not just even in blockchain, which is in itself a very important technology?
Yeah, it is, and as you said, there are a lot of people a lot of companies who have come into this of all different types, be they blockchain or be they traditional finance companies, all looking to how do we solve some of this friction? How do we lower barriers of entry? I think it's more than technology. It's really understanding how the ecosystem works in and of itself, and that's one of the things that excites me about Velo and Velo Protocol, is that it's designed by people who understand, who come from traditional banking and finance backgrounds, who really understand what those friction points are, understand why those friction points even exist, because not all of them are about technology. Some of those are, even down to an extent to be cultural and socioeconomic. So, there's a lot of things we have to do in order to, start to remove some of this friction and improve the situation with payments. And I think that's where Velo Labs, comes in to the picture today. What I think that we're doing that is quite a bit different at Velo Labs is that we are taking a different perspective to this. So again, it's not all about the technology. Some of it is about how you set up the functionality of the network, how the different financial institutions are equipped to interact with each other, and how that makes access better for the end customers that are utilizing that network.
Right. And it makes you made a great point with the cultural aspect as well, which is something I think a lot of people may not consider. But when it comes to business, that's a big part of being successful or not. So if we go back a bit and we explore the background, we've talked about your history and how you came into this space. And certainly it's been, I'm sure, a very interesting experience for you in the 3 or 4 years you've been here. But when it comes to proof of legitimacy, proof of establishing a company, what would you say, to someone who wants to know more about that? Understanding that you have the credentials as a team to really lead this out.
Mm-hmm. Certainly. So look, just for clarity, while I've been in this space for, dedicated to this space for about 3 to 4 years with some of the most cutting edge companies in the world, I've been in the region for about 16 years now. I'm based in Singapore. I've worked all over Asia Pacific, really understand how the market works and what the market need is here. And I think that's what I would start off in answering this question. It's just pointing to the fact that that Velo Labs is founded by a group of people who are from the Asia Pacific region. In fact, our founder is actually from one of the largest companies in the region, CPGroup. Mm-hmm. They are the 4th largest company in Asia. They are very focused, a lot of different types of businesses that they're focused on. But the financial services industry is one of the largest parts of the CP Group's holdings, and so again, that's where one of our founders come from, and we can talk about that a little bit more in detail as well.
Yeah, I'd love to actually, but before we do, I want to just find a little bit more about that team, obviously, because that is going to be really important to lead this out. So, just in a nutshell, how would you explain, to the average person the kind of skill sets that your team bring? Because I had a look, and there aren't a lot of people in your team. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd love to know how you would articulate the kind of skills they bring, not just the business background with very significant, I guess, names to the table.
Sure. So look, we have built a team. We have built a team. Like I said, it comes from a lot of experienced companies. So we've got career bankers that have come into the team. From some of the top banks in ASEAN and in the world for that matter. We've got people that come from very illustrious tech backgrounds like Ant Financial, Google, Microsoft. Obviously we talked about earlier, myself coming from Ripple and IBM background, and we're really recruiting and bringing in a team that brings that type of knowledge and mind share into Velo Labs, and that's really what we want to focus on. It is an exceedingly competitive market, and in a large way, in being competitive is having people that have sort of been there and done that before, maybe learned some lessons based off of the previous experiences that they've had with other companies, and are eager, energetic, and excited to do it bigger and do it better this time.
I see, and obviously we want to see those credentials, but really the proof will be in what comes forward, and we will touch on your roadmap later as well, Michael. But you mentioned something earlier in the interview about Ripple, and obviously you have that experience with that company, and obviously a lot of people know about that connection with remittance. So I wanted to ask you just very directly, given that things have happened in the past with different endeavors, whether they be Ripple or otherwise, what really sets Velo apart and Velo Labs? What can you offer in the context of remittance that's really going to showcase, I guess, a next move, going beyond what's been done in the past? Sure.
Look, I think, a lot of what's been done in the past, as I sort of alluded to, a few minutes back, it's a competitive landscape. A lot of people have come into this industry with a lot of different takes on what the next generation solution is. How do you make payments better from where we are today? And there's been some hits and misses, right? I don't think anyone's got it exceedingly right. And if they had, we would already see that. And I think we've seen challenges, right? I mean, we've seen challenges with a lot of these networks where liquidity, the availability of liquidity is a massive issue to overcome. And you can't get that liquidity until you have players in the ecosystem on the network that are willing to provide that liquidity, and are willing to participate and adopt these types of technologies and digital assets. And that's one of the major things that I see that's a differentiator with Velo Labs right off the background. So again, if we step back just for a couple of minutes to talk about Velo Labs and our founder, right? So the chairman of the company, Chatchaval, Chat for short. Chat is a very well-established, very well-known serial entrepreneur and investor in Southeast Asia's business landscape. He holds top executive positions in a large variety of public and private companies. So as an example of that, Chat is a family member of the CPGroup, one of the largest conglomerates in the world. It is the fourth largest conglomerate in all of Asia. They have operations in over 20 countries, and their annual turnover exceeds 63 billion USD per year. So this is an entire different level. I don't know that the blockchain community has actually seen a founder of this stature come into the ecosystem and start to offer not just backing, but also strategic plans with other trusted partners in the network. So one other thing I'd just leave you with to ponder a bit on CPGroup is that they're also the sole operators of all 7-Elevens in Thailand. And with that, Chat has a lot of experience in financial services, having founded a lot of successful companies in this industry, such as Aeon Sinsop, which is Thailand's largest consumer finance company. Finanesia Sirus, leading securities house in Thailand. He's also a member of the board of directors at True Corporation, which, if you're familiar with the True Corporation, it is one of Thailand's leading telecommunications group. So not only do they provide internet services, mobile phone services, they provide a lot of digital focused services, digital transformation, and those sort of things. And one of the things I think is maybe a little bit less known about our founder is that he's also the current owner of Fortune magazine. So, with all that, you've got someone coming to the table that not only has the experience across the financial services ecosystem, across large conglomerates and business functions on a global scale. You also have someone that's maintained that entrepreneurial spirit and brings the capital to back it up.
Well said. And this is what we wanted to talk about. This is really the meat of the sandwich of this entire interview for me anyway. And that is really trying to articulate the real proof in the business world. And not just, obviously what can be done in blockchain, but how you can bridge the two worlds of blockchain business and real world mainstream business, especially in Asia. So I want to go back and I really want to cement the gravity and the importance of this particular person you've mentioned. Obviously, the CPGroup is a big deal. Now, the third largest in Thailand, you mentioned before, 60 billion.
Brad. It's actually the first largest. It's actually the largest company in all of Thailand, fourth largest in Asia.
Well, thank you for correcting me. So, largest in Thailand, third largest in all of Asia, 60 billion USD in revenue per year, 20 countries. Now, I don't like FOMO. Many people would know that, but we have to talk about this more. Quite simply, this is something that is the reason why I wanted to talk to you, because you don't often see this kind of caliber of person move in these circles, especially when you see it underpinned by something that's going to emerge pretty soon and going to be something that is live and actionable soon as well. So what does it mean from your experience when you're at the boardroom or when you're in the meeting, and you're discussing the future plans and the roadmap ahead? What is it like to have this kind of real business entry into Velo Labs so that you can really get a really good kickstart from the beginning?
Yeah, well, I think to a large extent, it brings a lot of a sanity check into some of the vision, some of the business plans, that companies in this space might look at and might aim towards, right? Because at the end of the day, we're saying we're trying to solve friction, we're trying to lower barriers of entry. We're not coming into new industry. We're not servicing new players, right? So you have to think about how these industries have historically been set up, all the infrastructure that goes behind them. So the idea should not be to reinvent the wheel and just put a different spin on it, if you will. There really needs to be some true definition and some true analysis around how do the financial infrastructures of yesterday and today work? How have those things been set up? What is the true cause of friction in those things? And can those points of friction actually be replaced without disrupting the industries that they serve? It serves no point to rebuild an engine and then have the car that engine is supposed to be helping to drive not be able to function because you only redesigned the engine when the true friction was at the wheels, right? And that's really what I find is the difference with someone like with someone like Chat and the other members of the board. Because like I said, the folks that are on our board are all of similar profile. They are not net new into industry. They're not any sort of mad scientist that's sitting there, in some black box room with a lot of wild ideas happening. These are people that understand not just how the financial infrastructure, the financial ecosystem works on a global scale. They also understand the businesses that are the end customers of that financial ecosystem and how they work and what they need from the financial ecosystem and what needs to remain and what can be improved. And I think that really gets to the crux of the issue, and where I think a lot of companies that have said, oh, we're removing the friction from payment have sort of missed the boat.
Yes, and what's interesting also is that there's a lot of that sort of business representation in the team, and I like that because often there's a dearth of that because there's just sometimes too much theory built into the team, and we've seen that from those iterations from 2017 when white papers, I guess, were the sales pitch. Now it's very different, and you've come from a very different angle. You also mentioned cars, and highways really come to mind as well, because you're not just building the car, you're building the whole network because
Right.
you have those pre-existing points of value, and they are the businesses ready to connect with that highway. So let's talk about how you can do that with the protocol, because once again, there has to be that reciprocal value. There has to be this reciprocal synergy. You need to have the good tech. There's just no way around it. So how do we know that you do have it? How does the Velo Tech work, essentially? And how do we know it's good?
Sure. So look, I'll start. Talking with the foundations of the Velo protocol. We've had some of the best minds that work on this, both hands-on and in terms of design and implementation, as well as some of the best minds in the business in an advisory capacity. So the Velo protocol is based. It's built on top of the Stellar blockchain. And so we've had a lot of input from the folks at the Stellar Foundation, including Jed McCliff. So if that's if that's any indication of the type of mind share that we have involved in the design of these things, I think everybody in the industry very well aware of who Jed is, and the fact that he's been involved with the initial iteration of Mt. Gox, Ripple. Stellar, and now he's graced us with some of his knowledge in designing and rolling out the Velo protocol. So I think that gives a lot of credibility to what the team is doing, as well. It's like I said, just the design and the setup of the Velo protocol. It's really focused on enabling trustless and secure digital credit transfers between two parties without the need for a middleman. Right, so it's looking back at what are some of the limitations that other networks have come into play with, that some other blockchain projects have come into play with, and that have been limiting factors, for their adoption and for their use cases, and designing something that takes a little bit of a different view of things and maybe brings a better implementation, a better road for adoption, to blockchain and to digital assets. And so when I say we're removing, middlemen, look, the digital credits are collateralized by the tokens, which we call Velo tokens, and these bind digital credits to fiat deposits. So again, this is something else that's a little bit different, than what we've seen, than what we've seen in the past. A lot of arguments will go on with analysts and different, influencers and things around stablecoin versus other types of assets, volatility and different types of digital assets that creates a problem. I when I look at Velo, I see it as really standing right in the middle of those different things, where you get the capabilities of a digital asset, but you also get the stability and reliability to an extent of stable coins. Now, I wouldn't call Velo token a stable coin per se. I think digital credit is much more representative. And the reason I call that out is because Velo token is not inherently a stable coin in the traditional sense of a stable coin. Traditional sense of stable coin is typically paired to a single asset type, right? You have Tether that's paired to the USD, and you've got other types of stable coins. Where with the Velo protocol and Velo tokens, those can be paired against any type of fiat currency, exotic currencies for that matter, to produce the digital credits that these businesses, these trusted partners, can use in their day-to-day operations. So that in itself is a bit is quite a bit different than a lot of the digital assets that you see in the market today.
I see. So they can tap into different fiat essentially globally. That's the concept. And we've also seen that kind of redeemability built in with pre-blockchain with reward systems. But just before we go on and talk more about that and your token, I wanted to just explore a little bit of Stellar. Now, it has been regarded as a specialist chain specifically for remittance. So for those who, we won't go into the detail of the tech today, we don't want to bore everyone, but I do want to touch on the value of Stellar in this context, because you could have chosen to work with any blockchain, I would imagine, to work with any tech, that was of value, but you chose this. So do you want to just articulate what the value of that brings to a business? Whether is it expediency? Is it scalability? I mean, what's the core assets of something like Stellar?
Well, so look, I think, again, you're right. There's a lot of projects that, a lot of blockchain platforms that we could have elected to use. And certainly we talked to a good many of them, in the very early days of Velo Labs and looking at how to design this protocol. But again, if you look at Stellar, and the technology there, it is one of the best performing blockchains in terms of settlement that exist in the world today. You have a team that is focused, in particularly on payments and global money movement. And whether you're looking at remittances, whether you're looking at trade finance, whether you're looking at DeFi options, at the end of the day, it is all around how well can those transactions be supported. How transparent are they? How secure are they? How efficient can things happen on this network? So I think it becomes really important when you're looking at these different platforms to also be looking at the mindset of that platform and where those developers are looking to go as they develop and implement that platform. And I think when we looked at Stellar, we really saw an extremely efficient blockchain platform, and a team of very credible, very smart, and very like-minded individuals to what the Velo Labs team was trying to accomplish. So at the end of the day, choosing Stellar as the foundation platform really was a no-brainer. It made absolute complete sense.
Right, and also, to add to that, I think one of the value propositions that Stellar brings to you is that they've been tried and tested. They haven't just emerged as tech; they've actually been used in the context of remittance in different parts of the globe. And what Jeb would probably agree with is that it's exciting, perhaps, that it's now going to be tried in the hub of blockchain innovation in the world. I think that's why I also wanted to talk to you too, because it does seem like there's going to be a good fit here. Now, when it comes to some of the innovations you've developed, you mentioned the Digital Credit Issuance Mechanism, the Digital Reserve System's another. Do you want to just explain those a bit more, what they mean and what they, add to the overall value of the whole system at Velo Labs? Sure.
So let me start with digital credit issuance and dig into that a little bit. So look, in our first phase, the Velo Protocol basically comprises a digital credit issuance mechanism and a digital reserve system. Digital credit issuance system is what allows the Velo Protocol to issue digital credits corresponding to any fiat or any exotic currency for that matter. While the digital reserve system ensures that these digital credits are always backed by the right amount of Velo token collateral to ensure a one-to-one digital credit to fiat currency ratio. Okay. And so just digging into what, to the digital reserve system a little bit here. The digital reserve system is an automated set of smart contracts that manages the Velo reserve pool and each partner's individual collateral pool. So it's this system that keeps the digital credits backed by Velo tokens fully collateralized and representative of the corresponding fiat currency, traditional currency, if you will, even while the Velo token price might fluctuate in the open market.
Okay.
So, the digital reserve system, basically it automatically rebalances the Velo token and the various collateral pools backing each digital credit to maintain that one-to-one link of value between the digital credit and the original fiat deposit. So that's, and so if you think back to what I was saying, a few minutes ago, this is really how we get we get the transparency and the full extensibility of maybe a digital asset, and a lot of the pros that you get with an Ethereum or Bitcoin with that open market value, but also being able to maintain the stability that you get with traditional currencies as well.
Right, and that collateral pool is going to be important because, again, you want to make sure, you mentioned a very important word before, and that's liquidity. You want to make sure that's also built in, and there's flexibility that the collateral pool offers, which is good. Now, there's also other aspects that you've built in. Trusted partners is another that I was reading into. Obviously, you've got to have that matching with all of the innovations. So how does that fit into the overall design?
Yeah, that's right. So and we've seen this, right? And I think we've even seen some commentary, from other companies here recently, about the challenges of liquidity and that being a limiting factor, to adoption, and the ability to use different types of digital assets in the market. Liquidity is a major thing. And I think this is where when we talk about trusted partners, when we talk about trusted partners at Velo Labs, we are talking about licensed financial institutions, like banks, remittance companies, MTOs, those sort of things to help facilitate the build out of a liquidity pool. But as I'm sure you well know, Brad, the liquidity that exists in the financial ecosystem today does not just come from banks or remittance companies. It also comes from other types of businesses and institutions, which is again why I think it's so impressive and such a differentiator to see Velo Labs already getting the support from multiple global conglomerates, right? Because that's these very large companies also produce very large pools of liquidity. They have to be able to run their business, and that's how they do it today. And so, starting to have those type of institutions come into the Velo Labs ecosystem and help us build these collateral pools. All right, it starts to generate and create that liquidity that so many other projects in the world today, even some of the most popular, have simply not been able to do after a number of years in the market trying to build liquidity. And I think that's something that we're going to see as a major differentiator with what Velo Labs is doing.
Right, and you also see that the collateral pool will feed into the business attention pool, for want of a better word, because once they see that the collateral pool is there, they're going to actually then see the advantages of experimentation. So the fact that you're building this into the technology, I think, is really a boon for you, because it's going to, allow for an acceleration of adoption as this starts to unfold post Q4. Now, again, going back to that token talk of earlier, can you just touch on a little bit more about the why? Why do you need to have this token? I guess you get asked that by everyone in an interview, but we do need to know that this token has value as a utility token and that it is needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So look, Velo tokens, they serve as both collateral and as an entrance requirement into the Velo ecosystem, right? Which goes directly again to building these liquidity pools. They're really at the center of our entire solution because they are what ensures that the settlement of digital credits, they are what ensures the settlement of the digital credits issued by the Velo Protocol. So a typical use case of the Velo Protocol starts with the issuance of digital credits collateralized by Velo tokens. Smart contracts link the Velo token collateral to the digital credits and the corresponding fiat deposits. As more partners join the Velo ecosystem and as their businesses grow, so will the demand for digital credits, and subsequently Velo tokens will also grow. This will allow for the increase in demand of Velo tokens on the open market as partners need to purchase more and more tokens to issue digital credits. The beauty of this is that you get all the, you get a very clear amount of transparency and in terms of what the liquidity pools look like at any given point in time. You move away from some of the I guess lack of transparency, uncertainty around some of the things we've seen with in the stablecoin ecosystem, where there's been questions of does Tether actually have
Exactly.
the capital that they purport to have backing those those Tether tokens, and still today I would argue that no one really knows for sure, but let's say we hope they do. Where you start to move away from that, with the Velo ecosystem, where you do get full transparency as to what the liquidity pools look like at any given moment in time.
Okay, and that, in the context of regulation and compliance, is exactly what we want to hear. Because, as you know, Singapore still takes blockchain very seriously. They are very pro-blockchain, but they also want to make sure that right from the beginning, everything is by the book, everything is open book, literally through the blockchain, and that there is that traceability built in. Now, clearly, the token itself, obviously, is something that is going to be quickly linked to business. Built into that is also partnerships. You need them. You've already alluded to some of them, but you have significant businesses and partnerships in the pipeline to quickly, start to experiment with applying this token in context. So can you tell us some of the specifics? What's involved? Who is it? How big are these conglomerates?
Sure. So, we can talk, so there's a few I can't talk about and a few I can.
Come on, Michael, you can talk about it all here.
Yeah. I wish I could, but I think I'd had some folks pretty upset with me. So I want to keep everybody happy and level-headed. But I will share a few of the partnerships that we've already been able to establish, and I think a good number of them are pretty impressive. Look, as you have some side of, Brad, we've already secured several key partnerships, with a number, with banks, with remittance companies and MTOs and other financial institutions, around the Asia Pacific region and for that matter, the world. But now, of course, like I said, some of those I can't really talk to, but I will share what I can. And the first partnership I'd really like to highlight is the partnership with Lightnet. So, Lightnet is a Singapore headquartered fintech company that's really dedicated to improving the lives of the unbanked and the underbanked population by building an inclusive international remittance ecosystem that increases the efficiency of existing money transfer operators and other financial institutions in the cross-border payments ecosystem. So Lightnet is really our first partner that will eventually go live with the Velo Protocol, and is one of our key trusted partners in the ecosystem. As we spoke about earlier, the international remittance ecosystem. This is really the first real world use case, for the Velo Protocol. But I think it's also one of the most important, because at the end of the day, this use case gives you a testament to the scalability of the Velo Protocol and the platform. With the size with the size and demands of the international remittance ecosystem, being successful here with a company like Lightnet as the first real world use case only stands to validate everything that the protocol has been designed to provide, and opens the door for more extensive use cases and other parts of the payments ecosystem. So DeFi use cases, trade finance use cases, all of those things. And I think getting at the end of the day, getting the payments capability confirmed, getting the scalability, and able to meet the demand of the international remittance ecosystem. I think it's just going to go to prove the validity of the technology and the Velo token.
Absolutely, and all the way through that, it sounds like it's a case of real-world adoption as well. And to be frank, we don't actually see a lot of that empirically, or empirically proven to be so in 2020. We hear a lot of buzz,
That's
we hear a
right.
lot of hope. So, I'm hoping that it is beyond hope with you as we move to Q1. And I do want to touch on that roadmap. But you mentioned LightNet. Now, there's obviously others as well in the pipeline. What others can you tell us about with those
Yeah.
partnerships?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And look, just before I move on from LightNet, yeah, LightNet, LightNet already has a number of very impressive investors and strategic partners. So one of the things that I think as well is when you look at LightNet's investors, they're not just investors; they're also strategic partners. And so just to give you to give you some insight into who's working with LightNet, who's invested, who's backing LightNet, who's working with LightNet to utilize LightNet's technology in their businesses. And I think this is very impressive and goes to and goes to give some indication to the types of institutions that are likely to be using the Velo protocol into the future. And that's UOB. UOB Venture Management, part of the UOB Bank Group, Seven Bank, which obviously is Seven Bank is a large Japanese financial institution. Essentially, every 7-Eleven in Japan is a bank branch for Seven Bank. So they are very much one of LightNet's main trusted partners and backers. Uni-President, which is one of the largest conglomerates out of Taiwan. So they've made a hefty investment into LightNet and are also working with LightNet to examine different use cases that they may want to use in their area of business across their group of companies, as well as we have some investment from Hashkey, Hopeshine, Signum, and Do Capital. So I think all of those are in the Asia in the Asia market as well as the global ecosystem, very very impressive. And like I said, in terms of LightNet, these guys are they're more than just investors; they're also strategic partners. But the second partnership that I could really that I can talk about today is also Inception, which is a leading financial services company based in Thailand. And they also provide a variety of financial services products in Southeast Asia. They've signed an MTO agreement with Velo Labs, and they're working on a variety of financial services projects with us as well, including remittance, e-payments, lending, all that will leverage Velo token as an interoperable asset to expand the Velo network settlement capabilities. So there you've got two really innovative and really leading edge fintechs in in the Asia Pacific region that are helping to develop these payment rails, the network, and the settlement capabilities. The third, which I think maybe for some might be the most interesting, if perhaps the most impressive, is the partnership that we formed with Seven Bank in Japan. So Seven Bank is a subsidiary of Seven & i Holdings, which again is also one of the largest, a very large conglomerate, one of the largest in Japan. It also happens to be the parent company for 7-Eleven in Japan, and the owner of Seven Bank. They have over 16,000 locations in Japan. They're an equity partner of Velo Labs and are working with us to enable transactions through their point of sale system, which stands to start as early as Q1 2021.
Right.
So those are three really three partnerships that I think are some of the most impressive on the network today, and that I could expose now. But with that being said, there are a lot of things happening, and more of these partnerships are going to be coming out into the news.
And, I have to give you credit because I like that you're not trying to hint or to try and create some sort of hype when it's not necessary. Because just in that long response you gave us, very clearly these strategic partners, and that's not said enough, I think, they're all geared at trying to ensure that through the work that you're doing together, that this can evolve into something that will be proven as a utility adopted, for the purpose. Now, when we talk about all of these 7-Elevens in Japan, that's a big deal. Having been to Japan myself, I mean, that's a big population of people. That's a lot of revenue potential just in that point alone, the banking aspect of this. We're talking from all of the different points and beyond in this roadmap. Time and time again, I keep hearing that you're gearing this to make sure that you're giving yourself, as we say in Australia, the best crack or the best chance at being adopted. And that's what matters at the end of the day, is that people are willing to see this as a unit of value, as a utility unit of value, so that people can start to transact, not just simply see what things we've seen in the past, which has been the pump and dumps. It's been the hype for hype's sake. This is something far beyond that, and you're setting up the whole infrastructure. And these responses keep reminding me this is something that you're planning on doing, I'd imagine, for several years ahead, decades, in fact.
That's right. That's right. And I mean, look, everybody wants to get to utopia, and that's not going to happen overnight, right? And you made a great point. I love that you're talking that you mentioned the building of hype, and building hype is great if you're going to deliver on it. But so many times, especially over the last few years, we've seen a number of players and a number of executives from those players who come onto the stage and build up a lot of hype about what ifs and maybes, and this will happen and that will happen, and then they don't come to pass, and it just erodes credibility. So we want to approach this differently, and that's also one of the reasons that I'm not going to share a lot of the partnerships. I'll share these three now. But I think it's important, and if we want the blockchain industry, we want the digital asset industry to have credibility. If you're going to put something into the market, make sure it happens, right? I mean, that's that the proof is in the pudding, and I think that's a really important context here. Is that deliver on the promise of the things that you put forward to market, and the market will be kind to you. I think if you make commitments and then you don't deliver on them, the market's not going to forget it either.
Right. And we also see that in the past, often tokenomic designs have often sort of lent themselves in those scenarios where they haven't really been driven by, long-term visions for more of that quick buck, utilizing the blockchain. So really, you're the complete opposite of that. You want to make sure that the token represents the utility value, and thus those who want to be in the position of applying use, taking part in the ecosystem, they certainly are going to be paying attention. But also, from a speculative standpoint, I would imagine that there's also a lot of study people would be doing as they start to learn about this, of the long-term plan that you have for that token. That's what I'll be doing, that's for sure, to make sure that this isn't something that is likened to that group of tokens you see out there that is high risk, because there's simply not a lot of empirical evidence of anything but speculation. So with that in mind, I wanted to ask you about marketing, because as you said, hype is not a bad thing as it stands, but how you approach this, especially in Asia, some of the masters of marketing exist in that space. What are you doing in that sort of aspect of your whole initiative as you move forward to make sure that you do garner all the imperative attention that you need to really build up the narrative, build up the beginning? Sure.
Well, we're on your show.
So yeah, I'm a small fish. Everybody knows that.
There are no small fish. No, look, Brad, we're really engaging, in terms of marketing. They're engaging with the industry. I mean, that's a must, and we're getting out there. We're engaging. We've been involved already in a lot of industry events. That will continue. You'll start to see us more and more at things like Singapore FinTech Festival, blockchain, various blockchain weeks across the region. Obviously, because of the current COVID situation, a lot of that stuff is virtual. But we are engaged. We are building up the community. We're active in blog posts. We're active in Twitter. We're active in Telegram. So we're actively building that community. And we're going to keep doing those things. We'll keep engaging with forums like yourself, and we're just going to keep on. We're going to keep on working, with the ecosystem as well. So some of these things are more overt marketing, things. But I think, as well, for the overt marketing things to work, you also have to think about the less obvious things, which I think a lot of blockchain projects have overlooked. And that's the importance of really being immersed in, with the different entities in the ecosystem. So, we want to be interoperable between all different types of financial service providers. So we're reaching out to them. We're having a lot of one-on-one discussions on what different types of financial institutions can do with can do with the Velo platform, with the tokens. We're engaging with regulators, with central banks. At the end of the day, there's no bypassing those things. And I think anybody who has that sense of bypassing the regulatory system, is just a bit delusion to think that that's actually going to lead towards mass adoption. It sounds great on paper, but it's just not going to work in practice, and that's my opinion on that. So I think that's also an important activity that we do that maybe not fall into a lot of people's definition of marketing, but engaging with the existing ecosystems, engaging with the regulators and the central banks. To make sure that we don't run into the same kind of challenges that other blockchain and digital asset projects have, where, plain and simple, they try to, they don't, I won't even say that they actively try to bypass regulators. They just simply don't account for it in the design of their solution. And then they run into challenges, not just to adoption, but challenges that are severe enough that it can actually derail and kill the entire project. And this is something else where Velo Labs puts a lot of energy and focus into. So it's really marketing to the entire ecosystem, and some of those things are a little bit less tangible, less overt than others.
Okay, and it's interesting because you've had the fortune of history on your side now that you're in the scenario of 220 in this second wave of significant blockchain innovation post 2017 hype bubble. Now it's time to see what some of those technologies can do, and you're fortunate in that you can experiment with something like Stellar. Now, it was also interesting, you mentioned earlier on in the interview about the kind of suite of products that are going to come out. I'd imagine there'll be some in the future we don't even know yet, perhaps you don't even know yet. But the key point is it's not just about remittance. That's what I've learned in this interview also, is that there's a lot of other verticals, a lot of other planning, a lot of potential for Velo as the token, as it's experimented with in the future. I like that there's the agnostic element built in, as you mentioned. Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you sort of rate your confidence as a team as you move into Q4, as you move into the roadmap plan? And tell us why, especially in reference to the roadmap.
Well, so yeah, so what? So I guess I'll answer it like this. We actually have a roadmap, and so I think that's the first thing. This isn't something. It's not a roadmap that's that simply exists in the ether. This is something that we're actively engaged on, and the roadmap actually extends out through multiple years. So we know where we are today. We know where we want to be. A couple of years from now, and even past that, and in those timelines, some things may change, but the end goals will not change, right? So we are very certain, we are very committed to where we are going as Velo Labs. In fact, the roadmap currently consists of 4 distinct phases, each adding new functionality to meet the demands of Velo Labs and its trusted partners. So like we've mentioned a couple of times on this call, in this conversation, phase 1 of Velo Labs and Velo Protocol, which will be launching here very shortly in Q4 2020, will consist of 2 main components that we spoke a little bit earlier: the digital credit issuance mechanism and the digital reserve in the digital reserve system. Okay? And so that really gets to that, to that initial remittance use case and how those things work, and how those things work in phase 1. In phase 2, which is actually planned right now for Q2 2021, we're going to add on a decentralized crypto exchange that will help facilitate deep cross-asset liquidity for Velo tokens and digital credit. So it's not just about building liquidity pools, but how do we facilitate a better cross-asset liquidity capability, and the decentralized crypto exchange is key to that. Okay? And that's going to be Q2 2021. In phase 3, which is scheduled right now for Q3 2021, is Velo Labs is going to begin offering decentralized lending solutions for those who want to borrow digital credit. So additionally, with this phase, it'll mark the introduction of a mechanism to let the community vote on certain parameters of the Velo protocol, such as adding new functions, the introduction of different types of assets, and also lending rates, right? So it's true community involvement in that way. And then we move down to phase 4, which will be coming later in 2021 and into 2022, where we're going to add a reputation system for trusted partners that will evaluate each trusted partner's historical use of the protocol and the Velo ecosystem. And that'll, and this goes to, involve building a worldwide network of fiat, digital credit, and Velo token on and off ramps. But I think, what's very good about this reputation system is, again, it gets towards enabling a trustless transaction capability, where you can see with the partners that you might be interacting with, transacting with across the Velo ecosystem, what is their reputation? And that'll be very transparent and very clear.
Okay, so there's a lot involved in that, and a very longitudinal roadmap as well. You don't often hear one that crosses over 2 years, and that in fact gives me more confidence. So it's funny, I asked you the confidence question, but having spoken to so many CEOs, I like that you're not rushing this, because if you were, I would have red flags in my mind, because there's a lot to do to get to those different milestones, especially with the lending and reputation. We've seen the likes of Chainlink, for example, building out their reputational model. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of tech, it's built into those, phases, as you mentioned. So that gets a tick in terms of not rushing what's all important. Now, the big move will be that Q4 entry. How far are we away from that? What can we expect, do you think, especially in the context of launch? What are you going to tell us? What can you, hint at that you do know?
Yeah. So look, with that Q4 2020, phase 1 launch, we are very close. We are very close to that. I would say we're within 60 to 90 days of that happening. I can't give the exact date, the exact date of token availability and different things, just because of confidentiality and what I'm allowed to say. But I think you can safely say within the next 60 to 90 days, you will see that launch occur. As we're enabled to share more detail, you'll certainly be able to see those things, on our Medium site, in Telegram and Twitter, as well as on the Velo.org website. So we're absolutely going to be as transparent as we possibly can with a lot of this roadmap and the execution against it. But I think definitely keep your eyes open, keep pinned to the Velo Labs media channels, because there are going to be some exciting things coming in the form of announcing that launch, announcing more partnerships, a lot of really exciting things to come very soon.
Got it. Well, Michael Cowan, I really appreciate your time today. Again, this was all about trying to provide information about what Velo Labs is currently doing in the build-up for their launch and beyond. It's far more important to see them continue on beyond the launch and lead into that mass adoption scenario that so many of us want to see more of. So I want to thank you and your team for making the time today. I really do appreciate that. Is there anything you'd like to say, just as one final comment, to all those who have managed to listen to the entire interview today?
Sure. Look, again, I would encourage everyone, especially in the coming weeks, to look at follow our website, Velo.org. That's just one channel, but you can find the white paper, and there'll be different announcements and things that come up on the Velo.org site. But again, with the, we maintain an active blog on Medium. We also are very active in our Telegram group, as well as Twitter. So again, a lot of exciting things are going to happen here. You will see a lot of announcements coming out. So that's really how I would close it off. And and again, we look for interaction with the community and ecosystem. So feel free to ask questions to the Telegram group. We'll always share what we can. If ideas around what you'd like to see, and in some of these different phases, or maybe even some more clarity on what those different phases are. As again, we're always open to ideas, partnerships. So we want to keep an open dialogue, and that's what we're here for.
Absolutely. Well, Michael, thank you once again for your time. If you'd like to know more, make sure you do click on the links below. I will provide all that information. And if you are wondering, and I'm sure some of you are, about tokenomics, about token information, you can certainly go and look at information that is available out there. And you can look at other interviews as well. I know Box Mining has done one previously, and there'll be more to come in the future. I certainly intend on doing more and following up with Velo Labs, because obviously they are focused on the future. They do want to build something real, and they have business partners to absolutely do it. So again, I wish you all the very best. I will talk to you hopefully at that launch period when you start to emerge, and let the people know. But until then, it's Blockchain Brad signing off, and thank you, Michael, for your time.
Thank you, Brad.